when we say fire, we have to read fire, arson, firearms, explosives together. That's my feeling, because more or less these topics are related. So what are all the topics related? We have to study fire, arson, firearms, then explosives also, because explosives also you see the fire coming out. And by now you should also know what is the difference between the fire. Fire of course is fire, but arson is a kind of a crime. So what kind of a crime is arson? And what is the difference between arson and mischief?
Fire due to malicious intention.
Are there instances where, can you quote some instances where a person setting fire to his own property? Can that happen?
Can happen, ma'am.
On what occasions?
Insurance related matters.
Kunsa? Kunsa?
Insurance.
Insurance. So what is the modus operandi you feel in such cases? What will be the normal modus operandi that they will be adopting? Suppose I have a rival and there is a recession in my particular business, isn't it? So, or my stock in my godown is a little deteriorating, and it is becoming quality wise inferior, isn't it? So what do? Especially in our state, Telangana and Andhra, especially Andhra, a place called Guntur and all, there are big godowns, and there are mirchi yards and then tobacco yards and all. So people, what do? Overnight they try to change if there is a deterioration, or if the business is running at a very low ebb. What they try to do is overnight they try to shift the material to a different place, and then put up some kind of an inferior material, substitute that with an inferior material, and then set it fire, and then create a scene as if it's all accidental. And since the material is already insured for some amount, so they go and claim that, now that my material is gutted, so I may be given the insurance for which I have already paid the premium and all. That may be one of the, and as you rightly said, maybe I just to hide my previous crimes and all. We have seen many scams, Sharda scam, this scam, that scam, where a multi-story building, kind of a secretariat, Mantralaya, where you will see only a specific floor getting engulfed in fire, while all other floors, they remain intact or they don't catch fire. And specifically the documents pertaining to that particular scam only, where the money has to be distributed, only those documents, very surprisingly, they become gutted, they become they get reduced to ash and all. So all such crimes, you see some malicious intention or willful conduct on the part of the perpetrator, isn't it? It is a willful conduct on the part of the perpetrator, and such type of crimes, if they often happen, that becomes the signature of that arsonist. So the person who commits arson is called an arsonist, isn't it? So it becomes a very typical signature, and that leaves a very characteristic modus operandi of that man, isn't it? So that is how you need to distinguish arson. Though in arson and fire and all, it's the typical, the element is fire only, but then the intention with which somebody does is what that matters. So firearms, as we know, why they get this name as firearms? They are also arms, they can be called as arms, like knives and axes and all, they can be called as arms. But why that name firearms? Any reason? Is there any reason why they are given the nomenclature as firearms? Yes? Any answer? Let me tell you that. Now when you pull the trigger in any firing mechanism, what precisely happens is, if you pull the trigger, now trigger mechanism will operate, and then it will, firing pin will touches the bottom of it. The typical phenomena of firing takes place, and the moment the projectile just comes out of the barrel, end of the barrel, muzzle, you will see that a small flame comes out. Did you ever observe that a very small flame comes out? No, that is the reason why they are called firearms. A small fire comes out, and that is the reason why they are called firearms. And why that fire due to? What is the reason why there will be fire when you operate a firearm? There is a just before the projectile comes out, there is a small flame, burning fire that comes out.
There is a ignition.
Ignition. I'm not talking about at the other end. When the projectile leaves the muzzle end, there are two ends, breech end and muzzle end, isn't it? The projectile comes out of the muzzle end, isn't it? Am I right? So the projectile comes out of the muzzle end, and before that projectile comes out, after the firing mechanism, I am saying that you see a very small, typical kind of a flame coming out from the muzzle end, isn't it? So that flame, because of that flame only, these firearms are called firearms. That's how they get the name firearm. Otherwise, they can also be called as arms. But firearms is the name given to them because of that flame, small flame that comes out. I am only asking you why that flame due to. What is the reason why it comes as a fire? The reason is
Burning of a propellant.
Burning of a propellant is not the correct answer.
Because gas is created and
gas is created. Gas is created, but gas that is created is carbon monoxide. Now carbon monoxide is so unsaturated, it is fond of oxygen again because it is unsaturated. So another form of carbon and oxygen is carbon dioxide also. So at any given moment of time, even though carbon monoxide is there, it is so unstable that it tries to become carbon dioxide. So the moment it comes out, the propellant and all, whatever you are saying, that moment it comes out, it is semi-burnt and all. The moment it comes out of the barrel, there is abundant oxygen in the atmosphere, isn't it? So carbon monoxide will have all the access of oxygen to combine with oxygen and form carbon dioxide. So that is that generates heat and flame. So that is the reason why the moment it comes out, it combines with oxygen, and then that reaction being very little violent and all, it produces flame, hence the name firearms. I hope I am clear. Is that clear?
yes, ma'am.
Now that is with regard to firearms. Now you see that the arson and fire, these two are typical things, and then to hide the crimes, other crimes and all, people may also employ a kind of a now how to distinguish? The question is, most of the time in the investigation it becomes very typical that when suppose a body is there in the fire scene, it is a scene of fire, no doubt, but then issue is whether the person died on account of fire, or is the fire causative agent, or the person is killed and then the body is put to fire just to simulate a case as if somebody died on account of fire. So that is a typical thing in the investigation that we need to prove. So what do you think will help us? What factors that we need to take into account in order to say whether the death of the person is on account of fire or the death has happened on account of some other cause, but then the body after the death is put in fire so that it is appearing as if the person has died on account of fire. Now there is a very good flow chart in one of the books I have read. I will also try to explain. So before that, I just want your opinions. What is the way out? What is the logic that we need to apply in order to understand these things?
PM examination.
PM examination तो बाद में तो होगा ना. Before PM examination, is there anything as an investigating officer that we can observe on the scene, because we have to take a quick actions in the scene itself. PM and all, I mean, they come little later, isn't it?
क्राइम सीन पे जो ये एविडेंस हमको कलेक्ट कर सकते हैं, जैसा वहाँ पे कि अगर फायर का इंसिडेंट है तो केरोसिन का बॉटल या कोई टीन या माचिस या कोई एक्सप्लोजिव है क्या, या
नहीं विक्टिम, खाली विक्टिम को देखने से, विक्टिम जो वो है ना बॉडी, उसको देख के कुछ पता चल सकता है क्या हमें? See, suppose even a medical doctor also, when he does a postmortem, as somebody is saying postmortem, like ठीक है, Shailendra and all saying postmortem, but postmortem doctor also is not God. After opening also, he will come to conclusion based on some parameters. I am just asking you to tell you the parameters. Now let us say, for example, what we need to observe whenever a body is there in the fire scene, then what the doctor has to do is there soot in air passages? So what we need to observe is air passages में soot का कुछ traces है क्या? So if the answer is yes for that, if the answer is yes for that, what is the answer? Yes, there is soot in the air passages, let us say. The first question what you have to put is, when the body is in fire, scene of fire, then what you need to ask is there any soot in the air passages? Is there any soot in the air passages? Now, if the answer for that is yes, that means yes, there is soot in the air passages. Then what is the conclusion that we can draw? Victim may have died of suffocation by inhaling smoke. That means he was alive, he was breathing, and then while he was breathing, maybe carbon monoxide content is more and all, he is not able to get enough oxygen, and due to asphyxia he might have died. Is that right? Gajanandi, is that conclusion right or wrong?
मैडम नहीं क्लियर नहीं हुआ.
Clear नहीं हुआ? See, there is a dead body. We do not know whether the person died of fire or something else. Maybe उनको कहीं किधर कोई जगह में इनको मार के फिर वो डेड बॉडी वो उसमें डाला है, फायर में डाला है. सो कैसा पता चलेगा इन पोस्टमार्टम? यू आर सेइंग पोस्टमार्टम विल डिसाइड. समबडी सेड पोस्टमार्टम विल डिसाइड. सो
पोस्टमार्टम में पता चल जाएगा, लेकिन जब क्राइम सीन पे इन्वेस्टिगेशन ऑफिसर को कैसा पता चलेगा? प्राइमरी
उससे हाँ नहीं उसके लिए है, उसके लिए भी दैट्स व्हाट द फ्लो चार्ट. यू नो, यू हैव टू लुक फॉर सम इंजरीज एंड ऑल. सपोज मार पीट के इनको खूनी करके फिर वो बॉडी को डाले उसमें फायर में, ऐसा समझे तो फिर if it is completely burned, nobody can say anything. See, if the body is completely burned, nobody can say anything, only postmortem can reveal. If suppose the body is half burnt, उसमें क्या होता है, then you see some vital reactions. If there was life before the person was put on fire, you will see some vital reaction. Body has a tendency to repair, है ना? तो वही ये फ्लो चार्ट में वही पता चलेगा. That is what we are now discussing. तो पहला प्रश्न ये पूछना है, वो बॉडी के अंदर जो एयर पैसेजेस में हमको सूट मिल रहा नहीं मिल रहा वो देखना है. तो उसका आंसर यस है, तो सूट मिल रहा बोले तो देन what is the conclusion that we can draw? The doctor conducting the postmortem will draw a conclusion saying that the victim may have died of suffocation by inhaling smoke. That means the dead body is not put on fire. So he was there in fire, and then he was slowly engulfing the smoke, and smoke has entered into his air passages, and more and more smoke was going inside his air passages, and there was no sufficient oxygen for him to breathe, isn't it? Now he is dying because of suffocation, otherwise we call it as asphyxial death. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Now, if there is an answer yes, this is the path. Now, if suppose answer is no, that means in his air passages there are no soot, there is no soot. Then what is the conclusion that we can draw? The conclusion that we can draw is, again we have to see, is there carbon monoxide in blood as well as cyanide and other poisons? अब हमको देखना ये है उसके बॉडी में सूट नहीं है तो ब्लड में कुछ कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड जैसा नहीं तो साइनाइड जैसा कुछ पॉइजन्स है क्या? साइनाइड से भी वही कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड से जैसा होता वैसा साइनाइड में भी आता. तो वी हैव टू सी दैट इज देयर कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड और साइनाइड एंड और एनी अदर पॉइजन. नाउ उसका भी दो पाथ है. अगर इसका आंसर यस है, दैट मीन्स यस इन हिज ब्लड वी कैन सी सम साइनाइड और देर इज ए प्रेजेंस ऑफ कार्बन. कैसा पता चलेगा? वो एफएसएल में पता चलेगा. सो ब्लड वगैरह भेज दिया उधर, तुरंत हमको रिपोर्ट होना है. दे हैव लेट अस से दैट दे हैव गिवन रिपोर्ट दैट यस cyanide or carbon monoxide is present in his blood. Now if answer is yes, then what is the presumption that you have to draw? Blood is cherry red in color. Victim died of poison from either carbon monoxide in the smoke or cyanide emanating from the burning of synthetic furnishings. That means जो भी synthetic furnishings उसमें है आजू बाजू में, उससे ये कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड भी निकल रहा, उससे साइनाइड भी निकल रहा. दोनों हमारे रेस्पिरेटरी सिस्टम के लिए बहुत डेंजर है. सो उसीलिए पॉइजन के वजह से इन्हों मर रहा, बोल के उतना तो हम इंटरप्रिटेशन कर सकते. किसका आंसर ऐसा है? तो अगर सूट के जगह इनके खून में कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड या साइनाइड का उसका लेवल ज़्यादा है समझो. सो द आंसर इफ दैट इज यस, देन व्हाट वी कैन से इज ब्लड इज cherry red in color and victim also is now she died or he died of poisoning from either carbon monoxide or maybe the cyanide. So what is the source of cyanide? उसमें वो जगह में इतना फर्निशिंग्स है, वो फर्निशिंग्स जलने से साइनाइड भी इससे आ रहा. तो वो साइनाइड इनहेल करने से इनका डेथ हो रहा. सो पॉइजनिंग बाय कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड या साइनाइड से हो रहा है इनका डेथ. नाउ if suppose the answer is no, if the answer is no, that means is there carbon monoxide as well as cyanide in the person, उसका आंसर no है, उसमें नहीं है बोले तो then do burns on the body have inflammation edge of a vital reaction which where RBC have tried to repair the damage. Now ये burns में हम ऐसा रिएक्शन देख सके ताकि ये रिपेयर बॉडी कुछ रिपेयर करने का कुछ साइंस दिख रहा उसमें. देन इफ फॉर दैट आंसर इज यस, देन विक्टिम डाइड फ्रॉम बर्न्स. दैट इज द कंक्लूजन फाइनली वी हैव टू ड्रॉ. दैट इज द कंक्लूजन व्हाट वी हैव टू ड्रॉ. नाउ सपोज दैट वाइटल रिएक्शन इज नॉट देयर, बिकॉज यस फॉर यस आल्सो देयर, if yes there is one situation, if no there is another situation. If suppose the vital reaction is not found, it is absent, then what is the other thing? Lacerations on the body may have caused by fire or by earlier injury. इसका मतलब क्या है? पहले ही इनको लैसरेशन हुआ, उससे इन्हें मर गया, देन वो बॉडी को इधर फ्लेम में डाल रहा. दिस इज व्हाट वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड, बिकॉज वो इंजरी का रिपेयर भी हो रहा, इन्फ्लेमेशन भी दिख रहा उधर. सो उससे हमको पता चलेगा. So laceration on the body may have been caused by fire or by earlier injury. Now, do they And do they show signs of underlying bleeding? अब वो लैसरेशन में कुछ ब्लीडिंग अंदर उसमें निकल रहा ब्लीडिंग. If it is yes, bleeding high बोली तो victim may have died already when fire has started, suggesting arson to hide remains. So उसमें वो जो इंजरी जो है, वो जो ब्लीडिंग है, अंदर से ब्लीडिंग आ रहा, सो इसका मतलब ये है अगर आदमी को कहीं से मारा, किधर तो मार के वो बॉडी को सीधा फायर में डाल रहा, ये तो दिस इज व्हाट वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड. देन if suppose the answer for that is no, victim died from burns. So this is how you have to just follow a flow chart kind of a thing, then come to conclusion whether the person's death is that an account of fire, or the person is already dead and the dead body is put in fire. That means the cause of death is not an account of fire, but it may be because of some injury or some homicide, and then just to hush up that homicide, they are putting the body into fire. This is what you need to understand. Now that is one challenge that we may have to face. Now in all fire and arson cases, what we need to see is what is the motive. That is most important, because otherwise fire can be accidental also, isn't it? Most of the time fire can also be accidental. Now how to distinguish whether it is accidental and all? Now for that, what we need to do is we have to take into so many facts, because arson or fire investigation typically is very, very difficult to investigate. Now what we need to understand is it a fire in any domestic dwelling, or is it some commercial entity or some industry where fire is happening and all? That we need to understand first. Whenever this kind of fire is reported, now what we have to see is it a residential dwelling where the crime is reported, or while fire accident is reported, or is it some industrial thing, or is it some kind of a sabotage, or what exactly is the motive behind the crime, and all we need to understand. Now in a typical case of what you call the residential kind of a gas explosions as they are called, so people are under the misconception that the cylinder, the domestic gas cylinders, they have exploded and that led to explosion. That is a very, very wrong notion. Now the domestic gas explosions will happen because of 2-3 things. One is if there is a problem in the regulator. If there is a problem in regulator or the tubing, piping and all, now slowly the gas that is there, LPG, the gas that is there gets slowly leaked. Now good that the otherwise LPG doesn't have any odor, it doesn't have any odor, but then to make the consumer understand that there is a leakage of the LPG, but since it doesn't have any odor, so nobody will notice. Even if that is getting leaked and all, nobody will notice. So in order to make it understandable, so what they have done is they have added some kind of a odorant to it, some odor, awful odor, so that it can be easily noticed. What is the typical chemical that is used in LPG to know that there is some gas leakage? Otherwise I told you that LPG is odorless, isn't it? How to detect the leakages then? What is the chemical that is mixed?
Mercaptan.
Mercaptan. Ethyl mercaptan is the agent that is used, so that whenever there is a leakage, that will be noticed by the bad odor that it gives. Now suppose there is a leakage, let us say, because of some defect in the tubing or because of some mechanical defect in the regulator itself. So there is a lot of gas that getting leaked. Now do you think just mere leakage of gas will lead to explosion? What exactly is required for any material, whether it is gas, solid or liquid, for it to burn? you also require some external factor adding on it, reacting on it. What is that external factor?
Ignition.
Ignition is what is required, isn't it? So now,
Source of fire.
source of fire. Yes, source of flame, source of fire, source of spark, whatever name you can give it. So that has to be there, isn't it? Now, if that is there, now slowly gas is leaking, now there it is forming a kind of what are known as explodable clouds. When it mixes with oxygen, which is only 20% or less than nearly 20%, oxygen is there in a typical atmosphere. Now the oxygen that is there in the atmosphere slowly gets mixed up. Only when these two are in right proportion, they will form what are known as explodable clouds. So they will form what are known as explodable clouds. Now these explodable clouds are very potential, and they are waiting for a situation to explode. Now what is that external factors that is required? We have discussed already that it is the ignition that is required. Now in a typical case of bright burning, or a typical case of 304B or 4088, whatever you say, now the daughter-in-law will be the first one to wake up, and then typically she goes and then puts the light on. That itself is sufficient, that ignition is sufficient. And now the clouds, explodable clouds, which is a mixture of your gas, LPG, and then oxygen in right proportion. Now they will be spread and they will be all over the room. So they will immediately explode, and that's how you see the explosion. That's how you see the explosion. It's not the cylinder bursting. It is the explosion of the explodable clouds, which are nothing but the mixture of oxygen and the vapor of the LPG. This is what we need to understand in a typical case of a what do you think, the LPG as the natural gas, which one is lighter and which one is heavier? And why should we know the density? How it is going to affect the case? Are you getting my point or not? The density of the material, whether it is gas or otherwise, is very important, isn't it? Density is important. Why density is important when we talk of fire accident or fire incidents?
लाइटर मटेरियल अपर सरफेस पे जाएगा.
हाँ, नहीं वो तो जाएगा, उससे हमको क्या पता चलेगा? वो इन्वेस्टिगेशन में हमको क्या सुविधा मिलेगा? इससे क्या क्लू मिलेगा? So why should we understand these things is my point. Huh? Yes.
Then create more explosion.
नहीं, more or less का नहीं. अभी हम क्या बोल रहे? एयर के हिसाब से, because everything, the density and all, we have to see in terms of air. एयर से पतला है, एयर से लाइटर है, एयर से heavier है, isn't it? Isn't it? Now if it is lighter, then will it settle down or will it fly to the upwards?
It will fly.
लाइटर मटेरियल फ्लाई.
It flies and then it will try to occupy the upper portions. It will travel upwards. It will travel upwards, है ना? अब समझो एयर से थोड़ा हेवी है, जो भी हमारा गैस है, नेचुरल गैस वगैरह, it is a little heavier than air. So what does it do? If it is heavier, it tries to settle down. हाँ, it settles down. वो तो है ना? It will settle down. Now, in a typical case of fire, if you are encountering, then if there is a fire on account of this, on account of LPG or on account of natural gas, let us say. Now, the fire pattern if you observe, in case of LPG, because it's a little lighter in weight, then you will see that upper portion of the room getting more affected, getting more damaged. Why it is getting more damaged? Because of its lighter nature, it is traveling upwards and it is going to occupy the top portions of the building or the room. Now, when it gets ignited, the concentration of the gas will be on the upper portion only. So So you will see more burning, more fire patterns, more soot formation. So these are all the manifestation of a fire, isn't it? The manifestation of a fire is you will see heat coming, you will see that there is a rise in temperature, isn't it? You will see that there is a combustion, you will see that there is a soot formation, there is a pattern formation, isn't it? So a typical soot formation, a charring will be there, and it will be more prominent on the top roof portion, isn't it? So that will be the scenario. Now, unlike that, if there is a natural gas, let us say, natural gas being little heavier than air, now it tries to travel downwards, and then on the floor you will see more damage and more manifestation, more kind of a deposition of a soot. Am I clear about this? Not convincing? Is it convincing or not convincing?
Yes.
So this is what you need to, and what is that you are able to draw inference out of that? The fire or the deposition of fire or the manifestation of the patterns and all will typically depend upon the type of material, whether it is a combustible material, inflammable material, like for example wood, isn't it, paper, rag and all, they are also one kind of materials. And other kind of materials are inflammable, we say, because they will catch fire easily. Now inflammable fluids are there, and you should also understand the state of the compound. Now what do you understand by the state? Any matter will have three states. What are the three states of a matter?
Liquid, solid, gas.
Huh.
Yes.
So, do you think that solid, when compared to solid, liquid, gas, which will burn faster?
Gaseous state.
Why?
Fuels.
Why?
बिकॉज वो उनमें कॉम्पैक्ट नहीं रहता है मटेरियल, और इजीली उसमें जलने के लिए ऑक्सीजन को जाने के लिए वो जगह है.
No, solids, if you see, they will be so rigid. They have their own mass and their own weight, isn't it? Their own density. Now liquid का इतना शेप नहीं, जो भी वो कंटेनर है उसका तो शेप तो लेंगे ना लिक्विड, मगर गैस तो पूरा फैल जाएगा गैस का. दैट मीन्स द मॉलिक्यूलर स्ट्रक्चर इनसाइड आल्सो मैटर्स. नो एकदम सॉलिड इतना नहीं जल सकते ना. It has to convert itself into liquid, then it has to convert itself into vapor. Vapor का माने gas. Only then the molecules are so loosely wound. उसमें क्या रहता है, अणु से निर्माणित होता ना. So it will have molecules. So in case of solid, the molecules are tightly, compactly arranged, whereas when it comes to liquid, it is not so tight, and then when it comes to gases, the arrangement of the molecules is so loose that they become so light and dense, they will easily they can catch fire and all. So this is what you need to understand. So by all this, what I am trying to tell you is the extent of the burning on account of fire will again depend on so many factors. One is the state of the material, the state of material which is burnt, which is combustion. So combustion is a kind of an oxidation process. You need to understand that combustion is a kind of oxidation. What do you understand by oxidation? So because these fundamentals are very important for us to understand the concept of fire. And what?
ऑक्सीजन वो लेता
Addition of oxygen, बस इतना ही. Oxidation means
एनर्जी रिलीज.
oxidation means addition of oxygen, बस इतना ही. Now what, but oxidation otherwise also, अब आयरन को बाहर रखे तो इसके ऊपर लाल लाल जैसा दिखता, isn't it? That is also a kind of an oxidation only, but then that will not lead to fire. Are you getting me? So oxidation, mere oxidation will not give you fire, isn't it? Oxidation has to be rapid oxidation. ऐसा वैसा ऑक्सीडेशन नहीं, रैपिड ऑक्सीडेशन में क्या होता you will see that lot of heat also getting generated. Whereas rusting of iron will not generate any kind of a heat. वो तो स्लो ऑक्सीडेशन है. रैपिड ऑक्सीडेशन जो होता है ये बर्निंग का कॉन्सेप्ट में, दैट इज वेरी वेरी रैपिड. इट इज वेरी वेरी रैपिड and it generates lot of heat. It generates lot of heat. That is very important. So not all oxidations will lead to fire, but only rapid oxidation of a combustible material will lead to fire. This is what we need to understand. And the density is also important. And ventilation. Now, how fire is propagating? Once you understand where the fire is generating, or where what is the seat of fire. See, you have to establish in all cases of fire incidents, you need to establish the site of fire, the origin of fire. Let us say that in a particular typical kind of a scene, you have found not one point of seat of fire, but several origins of fire you have found. Then what could be the inference out of that? What inference can you draw? Instead of one origin, point of origin, in a case let us say that we are able to locate more than or multiple origin of fires. Now what is the conclusion? Can any conclusion from the investigation point of view can be drawn or cannot be drawn in the first place? Can it be drawn? Can it not be drawn? Is any idea? Fire क्यों origin होता है? Only when there is some material. Without any material being put there, you will not see fire as it is. है ना? So that means that there is deliberate act on the part of the arsonist or the person who is trying to put something on fire. So what he wants sure damage of the building or sure damage of that particular entity. So what he has to do? He has to put the liquid. Suppose he is using kerosene, let us say for burning, he wants to use kerosene. Now he will not be happy sprinkling kerosene only in one corner, because it is a kind of a crime which he wants to commit without being noticed in a quick span of time, है ना? So इसलिए क्या करेंगे उन्होंने, एक ही जगह डालने से कई जगह ऐसा स्प्रिंकल करेंगे ताकि फायर जल्दी कैच हो जाए, है ना? तो इसीलिए if you find multiple origins of fire or multiple point of origin of fire, then it is a clear case that there is some intentional thing on the part of there is a motive, malicious intention on the part of the arsonist, and it is a typical case of arson. Am I clear about this?
Yes, ma'am.
So multiple origins of fire is equal to a clear case of arson, intentional malicious setting of fire. Am I clear about this? Then now once you establish the point of under, suppose what is the position of the, if ventilation is there. Now let us say two scenarios where there is ventilation, that means all doors and windows are being open, and there is another situation where all windows and doors are closed tightly. Then in which case do you think the manifestation of fire or damage on account of fire will be more and more severe?
Where door and windows are open.
Why? But windows and it will enhance, no? Why it will suppress? What is your logic?
Oxygen supply.
Oxygen supply तो ज़्यादा ही होगा ना? In the air there is a lot of oxygen. So what will happen? In the air if there is more oxygen, will it not promote? If more oxygen is there, will it not promote? Do you think it will be put off or it will promote? So I'll only throw today all questions you have to think and then tell me, refer books and tell me. है ना? So ventilation or otherwise you have to see whether ventilation if it is there. Suppose some firefighters are there, firefighters or fire extinguishing office will be there and then they'll come. So do you think that in all cases of fires only one type of fire extinguisher will be there, or depending upon the material that is put to fire, we may have to use different fire extinguishing substances? फायर एक्सटिंग्विशिंग का पता है ना क्या क्या होता है उसमें? यस, आज का क्लास थोड़ा डल चल रहा है. आई एम नॉट गेटिंग एनी आंसर्स फ्रॉम एनी कॉर्नर. गजानन जी, योर फेवरेट सब्जेक्ट यू शुड आंसर.
हाँ मैम, वो फायर किस चीज से लगा हुआ है, जिस बेस पे
नहीं, मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है, हर एक फायर सीन में वही एक्सटिंग्विशर यूज करना चाहिए, नहीं तो डिपेंडिंग अपॉन कौन सा ऐसा मटेरियल फायर में आग लग गया, किसको आग लग गया, उसके ऊपर उसके केमिकल नेचर के ऊपर हमको चुनना पड़ता, एक्सटिंग्विशर को चुनना पड़ेगा. ऐसा तो इनडिस्क्रिमिनेटली कोई तो भी यूज कर सकते हैं.
जो मटेरियल यूज हुआ फायर के लिए, उससे जैसा इलेक्ट्रिक का आग फायर हुआ है, या कोई ऐसा.
करेक्ट. हाँ, इसीलिए हाँ, अलग अलग टाइप का यूज करना चाहिए. क्यों बोले तो अब अनजाने में हम कोई ऐसा वैसा एक्सटिंग्विशर यूज करें, इंस्टेड ऑफ बुझाने से और आग लग जाता ना. और हमारा इरादा है बुझाने का आग, है ना, हम गलत एक्सटिंग्विशर इस्तेमाल कर रहे, उससे क्या होता? उससे ऐसा होता है वो बुझाने के जगह और आग लग जाता ना. सो दैट इज द रीजन व्हाई वी शुड अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट इज द मटेरियल विच इज बर्निंग, है ना. तो उसको कैसा एक्सटिंग्विश करना, इसके मुताबिक वी हैव टू डिस्टिंग्विश. वी कैन डिवाइड फायर्स इनटू different types, class A से लेके class B, class C, class D, like that we will divide the fires into different types. So how many types? So the typical types are A category, let us say A category fires are those fires. Now they are fires which are originating from ordinary material. Ordinary organic material जो होता है ना, organic material कौन सा हो सकता है? wood है ना, थ्रैश है, देन प्लास्टिक है, रबर है, पेपर है, क्लॉथ है, ये तो ऑर्डिनरी मटेरियल ऑर्गेनिक का होता ना. सो उसका जलने से जो आग लगता उसको कैटेगरी ये बोलता है. आर यू गेटिंग मी? क्लास ये जो फायर होता है उसमें ऑर्डिनरी मटेरियल जो ऑर्गेनिक का रहता है. टू नेम एग्जांपल्स, सो वुड एक हो सकता है, पेपर एक हो सकता है, थ्रैश माने जो डेब्री हम डालते हैं ना, कचरा, वो हो सकता है, नहीं तो प्लास्टिक भी हो सकता है, रबर भी हो सकता है ना, पेपर, क्लॉथ, कोई तो भी ऐसा ही मामूली चीज, उसका क्लास वो जलने से जो आग आता उसको क्लास ए वाला बोलेंगे हम. तो क्लास ए वाले के लिए भी एक टिपिकल एक्सटिंग्विशर तो होता ना. So what is the extinguisher that we may have to use for this type of fires? That means fires which are emanating from wood, from rubber, etc. Now ये तो होता है, ऐसा एक्सटिंग्विशर हमको चूज करना होता है, उसमें एकदम कूल कर सके. ये फायर जो आग जो आ रहा ना उसको एकदम कूल करने के लिए बिलो इट्स इग्निशन टेम्परेचर. इग्निशन टेम्परेचर जो होता है वो टेम्परेचर में ये इग्नाइट हो सकता है. सो वो इग्नाइटेड टेम्परेचर के नीचे लाने के लिए उसको एकदम कूल करना चाहिए, फायर को कूल करना चाहिए. सो एक्सटिंग्विशर का ऐसा होना चाहिए स्ट्रक्चर, उसमें ज़्यादातर पानी रहना चाहिए. सो पानी से इनको बुझा सकते. सो दे कैन बी एक्सटिंग्विश विथ वाटर. फायर एक्सटिंग्विशर विच कंटेन्स, वो भी एयर प्रेशर से आना. क्यों बोले तो फायर का स्प्रेडिंग इतना जल्दी हो जाता, by the time the fire extinguisher comes half of the damage would have been done. सो उसमें भी एकदम फोर्स से प्रेशर से एयर वाटर आए तो एयर प्रेशर से वाटर आए तो बुझाने का बहुत चांसेस होता। सो इसीलिए क्लास टाइप ऑफ ये फायर्स which are coming because of burning of wood and other rubber material, plastic material, what type of extinguishers need to be used? Water, which contain water, and that too they should come under pressure. They should come under air pressure. That type of extinguishers need to be used. Then what is the purpose? वो water डालने से क्या होता है इसको, ये इग्निशन टेम्परेचर जो होता है मटेरियल का, वुड का, रबर का, जो इग्निशन टेम्परेचर जो होता उससे इग्नाइट हो सकता है। इग्निशन टेम्परेचर में द मटेरियल विच इज बर्निंग, सो इट विल इग्नाइट। सो वो इग्नाइटेड टेम्परेचर को कम करना है। कम कैसा करेंगे? पानी डालने से वो टेम्परेचर जो है इग्निशन टेम्परेचर वो बिल्कुल रिड्यूस हो जाता। सो इसीलिए वो वाटर का यूज करना चाहिए उसमें। नाउ क्लास बी कैटेगरी कौन सा होता है? फ्लेमेबल सब्सटेंसेस। इसको जल्दी आग लगने से पूरा बर्निंग होता, वो वाले हमको क्लास बी में मिलेंगे। सो फ्लेमेबल सब्सटेंसेस दैट डू नॉट लीव एनी ऐश, वो बर्न होने से हमको ऐश वगैरह सूट नहीं मिलेगा, एकदम जल जाएगा, पूरा कंप्लीट कंबस्शन होता। अनलाइक वुड एंड ऑल, वुड बर्निंग में क्या होता, हमको थोड़ा तो सूट मिलता ना, थोड़ा तो सूट तो हमको मिलेंगे, है ना, 4 सूट तो मिलेंगे, ऐश तो मिलेंगे हमको। मगर इसमें ये फ्लूइड बर्न करने से डू यू सी एनी ऐश? डू यू सी एनी ऐश देयर? वुड जलने से ऐश मिलेगा हमको, मगर लिक्विड इनफ्लेमेबल जले तो हमको मिलता क्या ऐश? नहीं मिलेगा। क्यों? कंप्लीट बर्निंग होता है इसमें, इसीलिए इसको कंप्लीटली कंबस्टेबल मटेरियल बोलते हैं। इसको क्या बोलते हैं? कंबस्टेबल मटेरियल। नाउ इसका कोई ऐश भी नहीं मिलता, क्यों बोले तो कंप्लीट इसका फ्लेमेबल लिक्विड है, ये तो कंप्लीट इसका कंबस्शन होता। सो दिस काइंड ऑफ मटेरियल्स आर पुट इन क्लास बी टाइप। सो व्हाट आर द मटेरियल्स देयर? दे आर कॉल्ड फ्लेमेबल मटेरियल, फ्लेमेबल सब्सटेंसेस, है ना। सो दे लीव नो ऐश। सो पहला कैटेगरी में ऐश मिलता है क्लास ए में। क्लास 2 में, बी में हमको ऐश नहीं मिलेगा। कौन सा सब्सटेंसेस आएगा उसके अंदर? हमको आएगा फ्लेमेबल लिक्विड्स। हमें क्लियर अबाउट दिस? सो फ्लेमेबल में क्या क्या हो सकता है? हमारा केरोसिन हो सकता है, पेंट थिनर जो केरोसिन, गैसोलीन, है ना, ग्रीस, ऑयल पेंट्स, टर्पेंटाइन, तार, ग्रीस, ये पूरा जो डोमेस्टिक का जो होता है हमको फ्लूइड जैसा, फ्लूइड में रहता है वो लोग, वो सब्सटेंसेस, उसको हम फ्लेमेबल सब्सटेंस बोलते हैं। इसका क्लास बी में आता, वो ये पूरा क्लास बी कैटेगरी में आता है। देन नाउ व्हाट डू यू थिंक विल बी द एक्सटिंग्विशिंग मटेरियल दैट हैज टू बी यूज्ड? So an extinguishing material should be such that for this type of fires that it should act as a barrier. किसके बीच में? जो मटेरियल जो बर्निंग हो रहा एंड देन ऑक्सीजन जो सप्लाई हो रहा बाहर से, ये दोनों के बीच में ऐसा पर्दा जैसा, बैरियर जैसा वो खड़े रहना, वो एक्सटिंग्विशर। तो उसके लिए हम क्या यूज़ करना चाहिए? कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड यूज़ करना चाहिए। टू पुट इट आउट वी मे हैव टू यूज़ कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड। Now, dry chemical extinguisher contains foam, or dry chemical extinguisher contain foam or powdered white carbon dioxide, which will be used for extinguishing the fire, which is coming out because of the flammable liquids which are coming under the category of class B. So अभी तक तो class A का पता चला हमको। class B, class A में ordinary organic material जो घरेलू होता है, वो वुड होता है या चारकोल, ये पूरे वालों में क्लास ए माना जाएगा। वो उसका फायर का नाम वही देगा। देन उसमें बुझाने के लिए हम यूज़ कर रहे वाटर दैट टू विथ सम प्रेशर वी आर यूजिंग। एंड देन क्लास 2 और क्लास बी में देर आर फ्लेमेबल सब्सटेंसेस एंड एग्जाम्पल्स आर केरोसिन, पेंट थिनर, जो भी है फ्लेमेबल लिक्विड फॉर्म में रहता, उसको बुझाने के लिए हम ऐसा एक्सटिंग्विशर यूज़ करना चाहिए जो एक्ट कर सके हमारा बर्निंग मटेरियल के बीच में, ऑक्सीजन के बीच में एक पर्दा जैसा, नहीं तो एक बैरियर जैसा एक्ट करना चाहिए. इसीलिए पाउडर फॉर्म ऑफ कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड और फोम फॉर्म ऑफ कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड has to be used as a fire extinguisher to extinguish this kind of fires. Now coming to the category of C classes of fire, this I intend to take fire and arson and firearms and all as a continuous thing for 2-3 days or 3-4 days, because it's such a vast subject. We will take up for 4-5 classes only this. Is it okay, or you want me to hurry this up and then take up another one?
No, it's okay, ma'am. Please continue.
We have to deal in detail about this, And I'll also say about medical legal aspects of fire injuries and all will combine, because the subject is related. We'll try to touch upon all the aspects. So at least 2-3 classes or 3-4 classes I may require to complete this arson, firearms, then the medical legal aspects, everything. Then coming to the category of class C, as somebody is saying, Gajanan is saying, electrical appliances, electrical materials. Now what will happen, suppose class A में हमको बोला है पानी डालो बोल के, तो अचानक हम क्या करेंगे, हमको क्लास में इतना ही पढ़ा है बोल के पानी उसके ऊपर डाले तो क्या होता, फिर इलेक्ट्रिकल अप्लायंसेस के ऊपर पहले तो जल रहा, उसके ऊपर पानी डाल दे, क्या होता? नहीं, जलने का तो ठीक है, जल जाएगा कैसा तो भी जलने दो, हमको क्या नुकसान है? हाँ, हमको इलेक्ट्रिक्यूशन होता. तो इससे never when electrical appliances are burning, so we should never use water, because for class A anyway we are using, so same rule cannot be applied for every material. So for this, what do you think will be the for class C type? So these are electrical materials and fires involving electrical equipment. The combustible material include what is this, the electrical outlets, electrical appliances भी हो सकता है, सर्क्यूट ब्रेक्स भी हम यूज़ करेंगे, उसमें भी आग लग सकता है, और वायरिंग है ना. सो as with class B fires, the best way is to suppress this kind of fires. What is the best way? Is to remove the source of oxygen. The best way is in class C type of fires बुझाने के लिए, the best way is to remove the oxygen. Now how will you remove the oxygen component? As long as oxygen is there, they are going to burn. Now you remove the element of oxygen and you are able to suppress the fire on account of the electrical thing. Now some type of non-conducting extinguisher agent is necessary. So non-conducting extinguisher कौन सा है वो चुनना पड़ेगा हमको to put out this type of fires. So if any of the types of extinguishing agents are used, there is the possibility of an electrocution. So पानी भी नहीं डाल सकते, इसके ऊपर पानी डाले तो हमको शॉक तो लग जाएगा, तो वो 1000 तो है ही. And if class A extinguisher is used, वो तो पानी ही है, पानी से भी problem है, then use dry chemical. So what we need to do is, like in class B where we have used some powder form of the extinguisher, so here also you can use the same kind of carbon monoxide extinguisher, and this will also dampening residue, it dampens the residue, and the powder form also it will try to suppress the fire and all. Now what are class D type materials? Now class D type of fires are those that involve combustible, that is reactive metals. Now what do you understand by reactive metals? Can aluminium be classified as reactive metal? What are reactive metals? Can aluminium be classified as reactive metal?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Yes. How many of you will say yes? वो एक्टिव है तो why we use it as a household thing? Aluminium का डोर बनता है, aluminium का विंडो बनता है. If it is active, we should not use that, isn't it? इतना एक्टिव है तो एक स्पार्क से जल गए तो देन व्हाट इज यूज, व्हाई आर वी यूजिंग देम?
जो रेडिएशन देते हैं वो रिएक्टिव,
हाँ हाँ क्या है?
जो जिनमें रेडिएशन का प्रॉपर्टी रहती है
नहीं नहीं,
वो रेडिएशन।
अब 8th क्लास में 9th क्लास में आया है, आप रिकलेक्ट कर सके तो। ये मेटल जो होता है आल्कली मेटल्स बोल के सुना है? आल्कली मेटल्स पीरियोडिक टेबल में याद आ रहा?
यस मैडम, रेडियम।
नहीं नहीं, वो रेडियम नहीं, सोडियम, सोडियम पोटेशियम है ना, आल्कली मेटल्स। इससे आल्कली बनता है, सोडियम हाइड्रोक्साइड को क्या होता है, आल्कली होता है ना, सो उससे स्ट्रांग आल्कलीज बनता है, इसीलिए उसको आल्कली मेटल्स बोलता है। सोडियम नॉर्मली यू कैन नॉट कीप इट आउटसाइड, पूरा वो इसमें से बर्निंग आ जाता, यू हैव टू कीप सोडियम इन केरोसिन। याद आ रहा अभी? हाँ, सोडियम वो उसमें आल्कली मेटल्स, पीरियोडिक टेबल में आल्कली मेटल्स बोल के वो पूरा वेरी एक्टिव मेटल्स, दे आर ऑल मेटल्स एंड दे आर वेरी एक्टिव मेटल्स, सो दे कैन नॉट बी केप्ट आउटसाइड एज इट इज एंड दे शुड नेवर बी पुट इन वाटर। बाकी एल्यूमिनियम वगैरह पानी में डाल सकते हैं, मगर दीज मेटल्स विच आर वेरी वेरी एक्टिव शुड नेवर बी पुट इन वाटर, एकदम आग लग जाएगा पानी में डाले तो यू हैव टू कीप दिस मेटल्स इन केरोसिन, you have to keep this material in kerosene। inactive होता ना ऑर्गेनिक, उसमें inactive हो जाता है, इसीलिए उसमें डालना है। so all such type of active metals are coming under the category of D। so सोडियम का भी कोई यूजेस रहता ना, ऐसा ही सोडियम आग लगता बोल के तो we can't I mean we have to use it, isn't it? so उसमें क्या है, कभी भी ऐसा भी एक्सीडेंट हो सकता है उसमें। नो इसमें कौन सा, ये कैटेगरी डी में आ रहा वैसा मेटल्स पूरा, ऑल दोज कैटेगरीज ऑफ मेटल्स विच आर वेरी वेरी रिएक्टिव विच आर देयर इन द पीरियोडिक टेबल में फर्स्ट ग्रुप में जो आ रहा, सो दे आर कॉल्ड आल्कली मेटल्स, सोडियम पोटेशियम और पॉपुलर मेटल्स देयर, दे आर वेरी एक्टिव एंड देर 1 second। हेलो ऋषिल, हाँ one second। yes, so what category of metals are coming under the classification of class D? What are those metals?
Reactive metals.
Very reactive metals in the periodic table. What is the name given to that period? They are called alkali metals। why alkali metals? Because their reaction with water will give very strong alkalis, sodium hydroxide, potassium hydroxide। we have learned in 8th 9th classes that they are very strong base alkalis, है ना, इसीलिए उसको alkali metals बोलता है। so alkali metals if they catch fire, then that type of fires are classified under class D type of fires, है ना। देन तो उसको बुझाने के लिए हम यूज करेंगे कंपाउंड्स लाइक सोडियम कार्बोनेट, है ना, सोडियम क्लोराइड। मगर सोडियम क्लोराइड इतना, इफ यू सी सेम पीरियोडिक टेबल में सोडियम क्लोराइड भी है, सोडियम भी है, मगर सोडियम क्लोराइड इज अ वेरी स्टेबल कंपाउंड, इट इज़ अ वेरी स्टेबल कंपाउंड। सो सोडियम को बुझाने के लिए, आग लगने से उसको बुझाने के लिए वी आर यूजिंग सोडियम क्लोराइड, है ना, और सोडियम कार्बोनेट। सो दैट इज क्लास डी। सो अभी तक तो क्लास 1 से लेके डी तक हम वी हैव अंडरस्टूड। नो क्लास ए में कौन सा आ रहा, क्लास ए में कौन सा आ रहा? वुड वगैरह, है ना, पेपर वगैरह, हाँ ऑर्डिनरी। क्लास बी में क्या होगा, और इसको बुझाने के लिए कौन सा एक्सटिंग्विशर यूज करना चाहिए हमें? वाटर, है ना। हाँ, दूसरा कैटेगरी कौन सा है? क्लास बी में कौन सा आ रहा है? इनफ्लेमेबल लिक्विड्स, हमारा केरोसिन, गैसोलीन, है ना। हाँ, सो उसमें इसमें क्या फर्क है, वो जलने से हमको ऐश मिल रहा पहले वाला क्लास ए में, इसमें जलने से कोई हमको ऐश सूट वैसा कुछ भी नहीं मिलेगा। दैट मीन्स इट इज कंप्लीट कंबस्शन। उसमें तो पार्शियल कंबस्शन, इसमें तो पूरा कंप्लीट कंबस्शन। अब इसको बुझाने के लिए कौन सा एक्सटिंग्विशर चाहिए हमें? पाउडर फॉर्म में कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड, हाँ वैसा यूज करना चाहिए हमें। और क्लास सी में कौन सा आ रहा हमारा?
इलेक्ट्रिकल पाइप।
हाँ, इलेक्ट्रिकल का आ रहा। इसमें भी हम यूज कर रहे कौन सा? वही कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड वाला।
हेलो।
हाँ, यस। हाँ
मैम, थोड़ा मैंने क्लास सी का फायर जो है मैम, गैस के फायर के बारे में पढ़ा था।
कौन?
जो
कैन यू बी लिटिल लाउडर?
टाइप में रहता है और ई टाइप में इलेक्ट्रिक का फायर पढ़ा है मैम।
E type, there is also K type. K type is also there. K type is also there. I mean, it again depends on how scientists are classifying, that's all. वो E F कैटेगरी, E कैटेगरी में अब कौन सा डालना चाह रहे हैं?
ई में इलेक्ट्रिक कैटेगरी और एफ में जो है कुकिंग ऑयल वगैरह का जो।
हाँ, कुकिंग ऑयल तो है. So in some of the books they are giving K, some of the books they are giving as fifth category or K category. K category fires में they are giving your cooking oils. What you are saying, cooking oils are given under K category. So different versions, different countries, they are giving different names. That's it. So उससे कोई मतलब ही नहीं है ऐसा. But what we need to understand is, depending upon the material that is subjected to fire, we may have to choose a right kind of an extinguisher is what matters, है ना? Now उसमें क्या हो रहा है? Reactive materials, reactive materials आ रहा कौन सा कैटेगरी में हमारा? क्लास डी वाला. हाँ, क्लास डी वाला में कौन सा है? What are the metals? Alkali metals. Very very active metals in the periodic table. First group में जो आ रहा उसको हम we have to extinguish those fires which come which are on account of burning of these metals. What type of extinguisher are we supposed to use? Sodium carbonate and then sodium chloride. Now, as he rightly says, fifth category, or we can say class X type of fire, again is cooking oil and all. That is the classification they are giving. So each school of thought are giving different categories, Then what is that we have to understand whenever we investigate cases of what you call the fire. Then we talked about ethyl mercaptan and then the domestic kind of gases and all, and we talked about natural gas. What did I say? Natural gas lighter बोले heavier बोले?
Heavier than air.
हाँ, थोड़ा गलत बोले हम. You please have to correct. LP is heavier and natural gas is lighter. LP is heavier. Please correct it. LP is heavier. Natural gas is lighter. Now, suppose the origin of fire you have established, and we also talked about if there are multiple origins, then we can also say that there is a malicious intention, and then the arsonist is very much interested and he wants within a quick time he wants to ensure that the entire entity is being put to fire and all. Now, can we say something, some clues or some interpretation, can it be there depending upon the color of the flame? Color of the flame, can we say the substance? What is the substance which is being put to fire? Can that be predicted? Can the color, the color of the flame, can we say that because if it is red, it can be due to this, if it is orange, it can be due to that, or if it is yellow, it can be due to that? ऐसा कुछ बोल सकते क्या? So that is also predictable, isn't it? Now, one more thing that we can say is, and depending upon the color of the flame, for example, depending upon the color of the flame, we can also say what is the rough estimate of the temperature, because each flame is associated with some heat, isn't it? Now, for example, if it is red, flame is very red in color. Now, the approximate temperature that can be associated with such type of flames is nearly 900 degrees Fahrenheit. These are shown in terms of not centigrade, but they have shown it in terms of foreign heat. So there is a relation between foreign heat and then centigrade, isn't it? It is foreign heat. Now suppose it is orange. Now they are giving around 1700 or so. Orange flame is associated with this much heat. Now temperature. Yellow is 1800 to 1900. White is 2000 and above. And blue to white is 2550. So this is what is roughly we can say, depending upon the color of the flame, we can also associate that with the temperature or the heat that can be associated with it. Now another very difficult thing when we investigate the cases of fire is that what will be the first priority for any investigator, or for that matter as a humanitarian act? What will be the first option that we have to exercise whenever?
Save the injured person.
Save lives and properties, isn't it? Lives and properties will be our first priority, isn't it? So if suppose you have some signs of life, then you have to immediately shift that person to the hospital, isn't it? First thing you have to do that. Now, and one more thing is, आग जो है उसको बुझाना है. Otherwise, before it devastates the entire building or entire room, your second priority is to save the property. Once you have shifted the body to or the injured person to the hospital, the second option for you will be to save the properties, है ना? So saving the property, what is that you have to do? You have to call for the firefighters, fire extinguishers, isn't it? Now fire extinguishers, when they come, do you think that your duty is to look for the vital evidences, then ask them to wait, you please wait, I'll collect my evidences, then later on you can start your operation? What will you say? Our priority is to save properties, no? Before they are gutted completely, we have to save. So in the process, you are compromising some of the evidences. That's what is my point. You are also compromising some of the, you are invariably losing some vital, maybe you are losing some clues also over there. So that is another difficulty. Another difficulty for the investigator who is looking into the incident of a fire. By the time you go, there are already some firefighters who are doing these operations, and then they are putting the fire, suppressing the fire. So in the process, even some of the evidences get cleaned up. So that is another difficulty that you may see in fire investigations. Now, what are all the things that you need to follow immediately when you go to the scene? What is that you have to do? What are the factors that you need to establish in any typical case of a fire incident? Yes. What is that you have to establish?
Accident fire or arson?
Is it an account of malicious intention? Is it an accident? Or what exactly is the motive? If after all some person is, there are also fire maniacs also. For the fun of it, people may set fire, or maybe for insurance purposes and all. So what exactly is the motive of that person, and then what material he is using to set fire? How he is propagating the fire and all? What means he is using? Whether he has brought the liquid or the flammable liquid in a container, whether he has left the container there, and what is the igniting material that he has used? Is it a matchstick, is it a candle, or is it a lighter? What kind of igniting material that he is using? All that they will leave clues there, isn't it? You also have to typically look for. And one more thing, when you are talking about not the domestic kind of fires, but fires that are reported in commercial entities, Now, what is the first thing that you have to, what kind of information that you should gather before you start your investigation? कमर्शियल एरिया में एक जगह में आपको इंफॉर्मेशन आया जल जा रहा बोल के, देन व्हाट इज दैट व्हेन यू गो देयर, whom should you meet first and what kind of information should you get from that person? आई विटनेस तो है ही, उसके अलावा जो विक्टिम्स होता है, विक्टिम को भी पूछताछ करेंगे ना, विक्टिम एंटिटी मैनेजर जो भी होता है उसका तो पूछेंगे ना. So what is the first thing you will ask that owner or the person who is in possession of that place, or the manager who is running the show, or the business entity? So what is that you will try to understand? What is the business that is going on, isn't it? Depending upon what type of business, electronic का appliances का दुकान होगा, नहीं तो केरोसिन बेचने का एक दुकान होगा, नहीं तो वुड का दुकान होगा, और सम डाइस फैक्ट्री होगा, है ना. So उसका what is the type of business that is going on in that entity is the first thing that you need to notice. Now anyway, by the time you go, almost it is firefighters might have come and they might have suppressed the fire and all. Now you see a portion of the entity is being damaged. Now in order to assess the percentage of damage, and in order to assess what is the amount of risk that if somebody wants to still live there, so don't you think that these are very important?
Yes.
So these are the things that we need to, and photos be. See, the entity will have original photos when it was constructed and all, उसका तो drawing तो होगा, उसका तो photos तो होगा. Now after the fire, you also take photos. Now you try to compare what is the extent of damage, whether that particular place is now feasible for further living and all also you will assess. So this is the first thing that you are supposed to notice. Now let us say, depending upon the color of the flame, can we talk about the material that is being burnt. Now if it is black to brown, it can be turpentine. So turpentine, earlier we used to call turpentine and all. I mean turpentine is, I think still it is being used. So that is an account of turpentine. If brown to black it is coming, from brownish to black, then you can say it's a thinner, a kind of a thinner. Now then if it is brown, then cooking oil. Grey to brown, they say paper and all. Now greenish yellow can be because of chlorine gas. So this is little typical, you have to remember. Chlorine gas, if it is put to fire, then if it catches fire, then it gives greenish yellow typical color. Now benzene will give some white to grey color, and phosphorus is typical white. Phosphorus is white and chlorine is green, then benzene is white to grey. These are some names that at least you can remember. Then what else do you think is important from investigation point of view? Now fire patterns are also important. Before that, let me also tell you a typical case that we tried to investigate when I took charge as a director of the Telangana Forensic Science Laboratory. I think some of you might have heard in news and television and all that there was a bus burning that has happened. Are you aware of that case?
No, मैम आपने परसों बताया था.
हाँ, it was, but in the classroom I will show the pictures, videos and all, but for time being I will just give you a glimpse of that case. Now it was a case of a bus burning, a complete burning of the bus has happened. It has just remained as a skeleton, entire thing has been gutted. Now when I am attending a VIP duty in academy, because I was holding both the charges as a deputy director academy and also as director in charge of the FSL lab. So I get a phone call from the additional DG हमारा तो ऐसा एक महबूब नगर बोल के एक वो प्लेस में देर वॉज ए रिपोर्टेड फायर ऑफ ए this bus, Volvo bus. So you please arrange your team to go there. Now in Hyderabad, the scientists are spread over all over. So to bring them at one place, it takes time, isn't it? No, by the time the report has come, the incident report of the incident came. Almost it has been gutted. Entire thing, entire vehicle was in flames, and there were some rescue operations that were going on. The SP of the Mahbubnagar district calls me, and we could inform all other scientists, and we could pool all of them at one place in the main lab. And at that time we never had so many vehicles and all, so we requested the DAG concerned to send us the vehicle so that I can transport all the the scientists with suitable kits to reach that place. Now they have also gone there. Now meanwhile the local clues team and all that mobile teams who are there in that area, they could take lot of photos and videos of that bus, and the rescue operations were going on, and they were trying to dismantle the structure of the so-called bus. Bus was not at all, it was completely burned. Now there were 45 people, all software employees, those who are working in Bangalore. So they were coming from Bangalore to Hyderabad, and by the time this place called Kottakota is reached in between Hyderabad and Bangalore, there is a place called Kottakota. There the incident has happened. Now by the time it reaches that place, it is the wee hours of the morning, very early morning. So where you expect all the passengers to be in deep sleep, except the driver. Of course, the driver cannot afford to sleep. And on that fateful day, what has happened, he has not taken trouble to include one more spare driver. He was driving all through. And what has happened now, there was a mystery. Now all the 45 passengers were completely, they have become skeletons almost. In their sitting postures, somebody was in sitting postures, somebody was trying to escape from the window and all, and then some head is out, and then completely become a skeleton and all. These were the situations. And meanwhile, seeing the TV news, some relatives, because they know that their relatives were traveling in the bus, they have reached that scene and then took away one of the skeletons, thinking that it is their relative's body and all. And halfway through they have gone, and then they realized that some of the relatives, they said, we have wrongly identified this skeleton as our relative's body. So no, this seems to be not our relative's, not our relative's body. So let us go back and then surrender that dead body and look for our own person. So these were the confusions going on. Now at that time our people have reached, and it's a case worth mentioning because of the coordination work between the forensic medicine and forensic science people also in that case. Now initial apprehensions were that the driver must be in the drunken condition, and maybe that is responsible for he must have had a collision with some vehicle, and that got spark, and then the entire thing got gutted. So that was one story. And another story was that not story, all different kinds of hypotheses were going on. So the second kind of hypothesis was the extent of damage. By looking at the extent of damage, it must be definitely a handiwork of some sabotage or some terror act. So they must have carried some explosives in it, and explosion is responsible for the fire. That is another thing. Or somebody said, no, some inflammable liquid must have been carried by one of the passengers, and maybe somebody was smoking in the bus, and that being a AC bus and all. So the inflammable liquid must have caught fire, and that may be the cause for the fire. That was another story. So there were a lot of hypotheses, speculations and all, and meanwhile rescue operations were going on and all, and the bodies almost were, they have to be extricated, they were so stuck inside and all, there was no way to escape and all, and that is the scenario. Now, what do you think? What is the cause of death of these persons? All the 45 people simultaneously when they die, and then there was no attempt on the part of any of them, because the posture in which the bodies were there indicated that they were in their postures in situ. So what does that mean? What is the inference that you can draw? If you were the investigating officer, what is the inference? How will you eliminate one by one? So normal causes of fire is one explosion, है ना? एक तो इन्फ्लेमेबल लिक्विड अगर जल गए तो उसके वजह से, है ना? तो these two things how will you eliminate? एक्सप्लोजन अगर है तो अब इसका हालत क्या होना चाहिए? उतना डैमेज अगर है तो इट मस्ट बी नॉट लो एक्सप्लोजिव, है ना? वो तो हाई एक्सप्लोजिव ही होना चाहिए. सो हाउ विल यू एलिमिनेट दैट इट इज नॉट ऑन अकाउंट ऑफ एक्सप्लोजिव? जो फायर जो आ रहा, it is not on account of explosive, high explosive. How can you rule out? By looking at the scene. What is the characteristic feature of a high explosive? सीन में क्या हमको देखने को मिलेगा? हाई एक्सप्लोसिव
कोई some kind of crater.
क्रेटर तो ठीक है, नहीं बॉडीज के बारे में, बॉडीज के बारे में
नॉर्मल पोजीशन में नहीं रहेगी वो.
हाँ,
मतलब पलट जाएगी वो.
पलट जाएगी मैंने स्कैटर्ड, पलट जाना बोले तो स्कैटर्ड. व्हाट डू यू मीन?
नहीं, ओवरटर्न.
ओवरटर्न. और कोई आंसर?
लिफ्टिंग इफेक्ट होगा उसमें.
कौन सा?
लिफ्टिंग.
हाँ, लिफ्टिंग का मतलब थ्रोन ऑल ओवर, है ना? इंटैक्ट का सवाल ही नहीं है. हाई एक्सप्लोसिव में इतना प्रेशर बिल्ड हो जाता ताकि ऑल द आइटम्स इंक्लूडिंग ह्यूमन बॉडी पार्ट्स विल नॉट बी इंटैक्ट. they will be thrown to some distance, they will fly and they will be thrown to the distances, है ना? और इंटैक्टनेस भी नहीं रहेगा. जो बस का जो गाड़ी का जो हालत होता है वो तो इंटैक्ट नहीं रहेगा ना. तो the fact that the structure remained intact, people were only, they were burned, they were not thrown to distances. That means, can you not eliminate explosives being the cause of fire?
Yes.
So that was the first thing what we did. We said explosion, and to that extent we have also collected a lot of cotton swabs from all over. We have collected cotton swabs from all over just to see whether any traces of explosive or any pitting or any crater formation kind of a thing was there in the metal frame of the body of the bus and all. We try to eliminate it. वो पूरा ले लिया, उसमें तो कुछ भी ऐसा तो दिखाई नहीं दे रहा. But very interesting fact that we observed is underneath the bus, so-called bus, it is not in anyway in the form of a bus, it was only skeletal form, it was there. So underneath the bus, there was a lot of flow of this fuel, and there were attempts made by the driver to apply brakes. So you could see lot of skid marks over there, tire marks over there on the road. So what does that mean? Presence of tire marks and skid marks on the road, and with lot of oil overflowing underneath the bus. What does that indicate?
Leakage in fuel tank.
Leakage in fuel tank, number one. That will account for the large amount volume of फ्यूल गेटिंग accumulated underneath the bus, है ना. और इसके अलावा I said tire marks are there, skid marks are there. Do you mean to say that the driver was he alert or was he sleeping? What does that? Was there any attempt?
He was trying to
Ah.
apply brake.
He was trying to apply brake, and the speed, and why he was not successful? The bus came to halt after some distance, and you could see that in the form of a very clear skid marks, very long skid mark. So what does that mean?
High speed and
Yes, yes.
डीजल जो फ्यूल नीचे आया तो और फ्रिक्शन कम हो गया.
हाँ.
फ्रिक्शन और टाइम लगा.
हाँ, इससे ये मालूम हो रहा हमको, he was able to apply brake, but then the vehicle was not coming to halt immediately. क्यों? इतना ज़्यादा स्पीड से उन्हों जा रहा, इतना स्पीड से उन्हों जा रहा. He could see something, some incidents happening, or trying to overtake some vehicle which was also simultaneously going on that road. And then while in the process of overtaking it, he was speeding it, he was increasing the speed, and then suddenly he wants to apply brake, and because of the inertia, the vehicle which was in the momentum was not able to halt immediately. It was dragged. The wheel, the locked wheel was dragged to some distance, and where it could stop. If the driver was not alert, if he was in a drunken position, situation, then that would not have happened. He would not have applied brakes at all, because he was so incapacitated by drinking. So he wouldn't have applied brakes at all. So the fact that he tried to apply brake and then the vehicle was coming to a halt after application of the brakes at a distance is a clear indication that he was very much alert, he was trying to apply brake, but brakes were not that successful because the speed of the vehicle was so heavy, so fast that in spite of his best efforts to apply the brake and then making it to stop, it was not stopping. That is what is the conclusion that we can draw, isn't it? Now, in the front right portion of the vehicle, on closer observation, what we observed is there was more damage. There was more damage, and there were lot of impact kind of marks that were seen. So whenever a portion of the vehicle comes in contact with a very heavy, heavier than the body of the bus itself, only then it will receive some marks and all, isn't it? The harder surface, when it hits the lighter surface, the harder surface leaves its marks on the softer surface. That's what is the tool mark, isn't it? So we could see lot of damaged impact on that portion of the vehicle. That means that is the portion which is coming in contact with the thing. And if you see the structure, geography of that particular place, you will see that there is a culvert and there is a what you call the divider. So these two things are there. There is a divider, and in 10 meters below that particular point of accident, you see that the divider was in one plane, and suddenly you see that at that particular point of accident, the divider was road divider was coming little towards the road. It got and there is a blind curve also there. Blind curve also there. So this is the geography of the that particular location, and you will see that 10 kilometers before the accident spot, you will see that there is a rubbing of the tire of the vehicle onto the culvert, onto the not culvert, on the divider, on the divider. On the divider, you will see that there is a tire mark which is constantly coming. What does that mean? Why should there be a tire mark on the divider thing? What does that mean?
Front right portion, that is driver side.
ड्राइवर might have
ड्राइवर से टकराया, उसके बाद ड्राइवर ने वो गाड़ी
नहीं नहीं, वो जो, हाँ नहीं नहीं, हाँ वो जो डिवाइडर है ना, वो जो प्रोजेक्शन जो डिवाइडर है ना, उसके रबिंग हो रहा, इसीलिए टायर मार्क उसके ऊपर आता ना। रबिंग नहीं हो तो टायर मार्क तो दिखता नहीं। सो इसका मतलब, सो इवन बिफोर दिस एक्सीडेंट स्पॉट 10 kilometers before that spot, the tire was rubbing. The tire was rubbing. The wheel of the vehicle was rubbing against the divider. That is what is the thing.
वो टच हुआ उसको टायर से,
हाँ
टायर से कब हुआ, टच हो गया टायर से।
हाँ, टच हो जा रहा। दैट मीन्स he was just winking, he was not sleeping. उतना वो सेकंड ड्राइवर भी नहीं था शायद, उनको थोड़ा ऐसा नींद लगा, वो नींद में क्या कर रहे वैसा ही, एंड इट वाज गोइंग विथ हाई स्पीड. हाउ कैन वी कैलकुलेट स्पीड? With the help of that skid mark length and all, we could calculate roughly what was the speed of the vehicle at the time of accident or just before the accident. 10 kilometers पीछे कितना स्पीड में वो व्हीकल जा रहा, उसका भी मालूम हुआ. And one more interesting fact, near that point of accident what we observed is there is a culvert and there is a railing pipe which is there on the top. So railing pipe has got a GI pipe also on the covering. GI pipe covering was there. Now at the point of accident we could see that it has broken into 3 pieces. GI pipe जो है कलवर्ट के ऊपर, उसका 3 टुकड़ा हो गया, 3 टुकड़ा हो गया. एंड 2 टुकड़े तो कलवर्ट नीचे गिर गया, एक तो आके उसका जो फ्यूल टैंक जो होता है इसका इट पियर्स्ड, दैट पियर्स माने इसके अंदर घुस गया है ना. तो वो अंदर घुसने में क्या हुआ, ये जो टैंक जो था फ्यूल का, इसका होल हो गया, इसका होल बन गया, और होल से इतना फ्यूल लीकेज हो जा रहा. एंड दिस फ्रिक्शन वाज आल्सो गोइंग ऑन. एकदम फ्रिक्शन होने से देन देयर वाज an account of friction, sparks were generated, and suddenly the sparks and friction and then that fuel was sufficient to build up fire, and everybody before they realized, and they were also not making any effort to come out of that. Why? What could be the reason why they died in the same posture as they were sitting? What is the reason for that?
बस है पूरा,
हाँ,
वॉल्वो बस है, एसी बस है, वो ब्रेक नहीं कर पाए विंडोज वगैरह.
आप another medium you are using, your voice is resounding. आप दो यूज कर रहे शायद. हाँ आप बोलिए, आप बोलिए.
ओ एसी बस था, वॉल्वो बस था, तो वो खिड़की वगैरह ब्रेक नहीं कर पाए.
हाँ नहीं, वो तो एक है, मगर they were immobilized. I mean एक तो नहीं तो एक तो ऐसा ही, everybody will not be sleeping, you know. Some people are in the habit of waking up even in the early morning or late night also. At least we have not seen anybody, everybody was charred. There is only, except for skeleton, nothing, no flesh, nothing was there on their bodies. Maybe एक दो में फ्लैश वगैरह था, फिर बाकी का तो पूरा स्केलेटन बन गया, इतना ब्लैक हो गया, mere touching of the body it would have become powdery, ऐसा हो गया. Then what is the reason? Then the bodies, they cannot be sent to mortuary also. Mortuary was also not nearby. So what we did is we arranged the postmortem there only. We have called forensic medicine doctors from different places. A place called Kurnool was nearby. There also we could get some forensic medicine doctors. And from Hyderabad also people have travelled all the way and they have come to that spot. So on the spot postmortem was conducted. Then very interesting revelations have come from postmortem reports. What is the revelation? They said lot of soot was present inside the air passages, and the blood has become cherry red. What does that mean?
कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड बन गया अंदर,
हाँ,
और एक तो कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड
डेथ का वजह क्या था? बॉडी जलने से, नहीं तो कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड इनहेल करने से डेथ कैसा हुआ?
कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड इनहेल करने की वजह से डेथ हो गया, इसकी वजह से वो स्ट्रगल भी नहीं करता।
हाँ, सही है। तो these inferences, these examinations from the doctors and all, they revealed very clearly that there was no attempt resist करने का भी इनमें वो they have already gone into some kind of a semi coma, because they have inhaled the carbon monoxide because of the insufficient oxygen present over there. पूरा तो बंद था, there was no way, AC तो है, एसी रूम तो है, देयर वर नो एग्जिट, एंड देन पूरा जाम हो गया, जो एग्जिट इमरजेंसी डोर्स भी थे वो तो पूरा पैक हो गया, जाम हो गया बिकॉज ऑफ दिस फायर एंड ऑल, एंड देयर वाज नो वे दैट इवन इफ समबडी वुड हैव ट्राइड, देयर वाज नो, ओनली वन person I could see that he is trying to put his head completely out of the window and then trying to break that glass and then trying to put his head and all, and he has also become skeletonized and all. So that means what, the persons have become immobilized because they have inhaled so much of carbon monoxide inside that they got immobilized, they were into semi coma and they were lying like that, motionless, and in that state the fire has engulfed them. This is the cause of death that we could conclude. And another thing was, when the bodies have become so deformed that by looking at the morphology, looking at external features, there was no way that we can establish the identity, isn't it? So then we have to go for DNA and all. That's a different story. When I show you the pictures in the classroom, you will appreciate the fact how the reconstruction was done and all. You will appreciate that in a better way. So I think we are overstayed the time. We'll meet Monday. We'll leave 2 days this thing. We'll meet on Monday.
Yes.
So some question papers I have given. I don't know whether somebody tried to do it or not. I am not getting any feedback out of that. So you have to do the questions. You have to practice the questions. Only when you will get. Should I give for 2 days? Should I give some questions and all? Should I post in the WhatsApp group?
Yes.
I'll do that, and then we'll discuss that also Monday.
Okay.
So 2 दिन के लिए छुट्टी. Will not have any class.
Okay.
Right. Yeah,